going to start recording. Welcome to the August 1st. It's pretty bizarre that it's August 1st, but it is, right? And I'm really thrilled to, I'm going to do a formal introduction of Bethany Lilly in a minute. And not even a minute. I'm going to let you just go ahead first, Bethany, so I don't hold you up, given everything that's going on. And so it's really a pleasure to have her with us today. So today's really a chance to get a federal update because that session doesn't end until end of September. And then our session, technically the formal part ended yesterday, or it was 7 a.m. It's the longest the last time. I don't remember it going that long, but I'm sure it did in a previous year. I do remember 2 to 3 a.m. But what I'd like to do is let me get it started then, and we'll do a catch up about what happened, and let me go ahead and share this and get started with the formal session. Hopefully everybody's starting the month. Well, I know a lot of people are still waiting for services and during the day, and so I wish we're going to need to do more. So it's hard to believe it's August 1st. Welcome, and just want to remind everybody about the Leo lives. In the next 2 weeks after this, we're going to be doing promises kept and unkept, and we're going to have special guests for each one, but I'm hoping families, we can document stories and stories that we can also have legislators share. So Rep. Sean Garbely, who sponsored 2 of the bills that were part of the conference committee package, he'll be with us next week. Today was not a good day to have him here. So Bethany Lilly, welcome, Bethany. It's a pleasure working with you at the ARC. She's a senior director of income policy. She's been in this role for the past 3 years, and it does seem like a while, even though, it's amazing, right? When you first came, and I had no idea, this is sort of embarrassing, that you were at Bazelon, because we worked with Bazelon, and I'm going to space out on the attorney's name, when there was the ADA, Homestead. And we got a chance, our attorney on the Boulay suit represented the former, commissioners and one active commissioner of DD services in that amici. So, but I can't, a really senior guy there was still there when you were there.
Probably Ira.
Yeah, it's Ira, exactly. Yeah. And they had both clerked for the judge in Mississippi, who was a big civil rights, and that's embarrassing. I don't know if you or Rick would remember that judge's name, but it's
I should
amazing.
know this, but I do not remember his name. I have been to his chambers because they were taken over by somebody my friend clerked for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's famous. I don't think it's Johnson, right? Anyway, but it's anyway, so they had a connection without knowing each other. So that worked out well. And then you were a clerk at HELP, which is, Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, a key committee for us. So you sort of trail makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to close this for a bit, because I think the next slide just gets us back to other stuff, and let you talk a little bit and give us an update. That would be great.
Well, I'll start off with kind of where we are at the federal level. We are already in August. Traditionally, the Senate takes an August recess break where they take the whole month off. That is currently getting held up because several pieces of legislation are under consideration, and so they're likely to be in session for at least another week or 2. I'm hoping it's just another week because I am on vacation next week. So I am keeping my fingers crossed that they will get everything done this week. This is a problem with booking vacations early in August, is often they get pushed out. So what is Congress currently considering? The big one that I know everyone has probably been tracking is the budget reconciliation package. This is the package that, when it passed the House, had a massive investment in home and community-based services, and then kind of imploded at the end of last year. And since then, Senators Manchin and Schumer have been negotiating to try and see if they can get to a deal. They reached a deal last week. Unfortunately, that deal does not include home and community-based services. We are very disappointed in that. I know that many, many people have reached out from Massachusetts to talk to your senators to emphasize how important this is. And thank you for doing that. This is frustrating and disappointing and not how we wanted this to go. There are a couple of smaller procedural things that we're trying right now to see if maybe we could get something small, like a permanent money follows the person program or something like that slipped in at the end. We're just going to have to see how this plays out over the next week and a half, but we're trying. We're going to try and slip those things in. We'll see. We're expecting the bill itself. It's currently going through something with a very entertaining name, the bird bath, named after former Senator Burr, a bird, because that's just part of the reconciliation process. And during that, they're going to likely take a very close look at the text and see if everything can stay in. At least as of right now, it does have some positive things for people with disabilities. For many years, we've been fighting for an out-of-pocket cap in Medicare to reduce the cost of prescription drugs. That out-of-pocket cap would be included. It does not include the cap on the cost of insulin. We're not entirely sure why. There seems to be some type of fuss with Manchin about that, but that's something we had also been advocating for. And then there are also increases to the lowest income subsidies for people. Sorry, I'm getting dings from a staff meeting. It's happening. Those should be increased to 150% of federal poverty, which is going to be a good increase. All of this is stuff we've advocated as the ARC for many years. We're happy to see it. That doesn't fix the HCBS problem, the direct support professional crisis that we're all going through right now. And we are still making that clear to every member of Congress. And I will say, I do think we are at a point where I have never felt this level of awareness of home and community-based services on Capitol Hill. And as Leo pointed out, I have been doing this for a while. And so I am really optimistic that even if we don't manage to slip something in now, hopefully come the end of the year package, we can slip in at least money follows the person being made permanent and also spousal impoverishment being made permanent. We're going to have to see how that plays out, but that's at least right now kind of in terms of home and community-based services where we think things are going. There's also been extensive bipartisan interest in fixing the SSI asset limits. This is something that we've been working on again for many decades. But we actually have a bill and it is actually bipartisan. We've got Senators Brown and Portman leading from Ohio. They are being supported by Senators Collins, Senator Cassidy, a collection of other Republican senators who I've never seen support an SSI bill before. So I'm very excited about this. I think this could be a real step in the right direction. Kind of at the same time, we have a package moving around retirement security, which in the Senate just added an adjustment, the Able Age Adjustment Act, which would actually raise the age after which you could get an ABLE account. So right now it's set at 26. You have to obtain your disability before that. That generally captures most of our folks, but not always. And so raising that age has been a priority, not only for us, but for the entire disability community. So I think that would be a really good step in the right direction. With the SSI asset limit bill at the same time, that SSI asset limit, I think, would just make administering SSI a lot easier, because lots of people get hit by overpayments right now if they go over, or get hit by, having $2,005 in their bank account. And so if we can fix that, the bill would bump it up to $10,000. It would also fix the asset limit marriage penalty. There are a couple different marriage penalties in SSI, but one of them reduces your asset limit if you get married. This would fix that and would raise married couples to 20 grand. So I think that would be a really good step in the right direction. As I said, bipartisan interest. Senator Wyden would like to get a vote on it by the end of the year. And so since he's the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, that's a really good situation for us to be in. So I think, both on the HCBS space and in the SSI space, we're looking at the end of the year package. We're thinking about what.
Oh, just lost you.
And we are.
Oh.
It's telling me you're muting me, Leo.
Oh, God. It might be Carrie. It might be Carrie. Keep your hands away from the screen.
But with these two things, we're really, I think we have a real shot at the end of the year package. Reconciliation, we're going to just have to play it by ear. And I'll be honest, I'm not all that optimistic, just because it's been. Working with Senator Manchin has been a distinct challenge. I props to the ARC of West Virginia for doing amazing work to try and get issues in front of him. He just we can't seem to get him to understand sometimes exactly how complicated things are. I will say we're also tracking very closely the state spending of the ARP money. That's actually likely to set up the next big financial investment and the pressure for that, because that will create a cliff at the end of 2023. So we're keeping a very close eye on that and seeing if we can, if it's working, if states are spending the money well. I'd love to hear kind of how you guys in Massachusetts are spending the money and whether or not you think it's the right way to spend the money. And so we're keeping an eye on that. We're also, and this is Massachusetts specific, so I figured you all would want to report on this. This is actually something I first encountered when I was working for the Senate Help Committee, but we have managed to successfully get a ban on the electroshock device used at the Judge Rottenberg Center inserted into the House user fee bill, which is a big FDA authorization. We were really excited to see that. We also successfully passed an amendment to include it in the Senate bill. They are currently negotiating those two bills. Senator Burr from North Carolina is currently our only problem. All the rest of the folks that are in the negotiations all agree that this should be included. We are tentatively optimistic it will be, but we really have to see kind of how those negotiations play out.
Wow.
So fingers crossed, everyone.
Wow.
That would be really great if we could get that done. But we are just waiting to see how Senator Burr reacts to some of the.
Wow.
He is. I'm not quite sure what's going on here. We're working very closely with the House Republicans who are very supportive and want this included, and so we're just at a little bit of a loss about what's going on here. So, but we'll figure it out. And so that is where the status of the JRC bill and the status of kind of where we are federally. You all probably know there's an election coming up, and we are starting to do our thinking about what the next Congress is going to look like, because if you obsessively track the polling like I do, you may notice that it seems pretty likely that the Democrats are going to lose the House. That may not be the case. I mean, we still have several more months before the election, but if that is the case, we'll be facing a very different Congress. It'll be a split Congress,
Right.
Depending on how the Senate plays out, which seems to be very up in the air right now. One thing that will be interesting, and this happened last week, and we're really excited about it. The woman who would be the chair of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, so the chief Republican working on healthcare issues related to people with disabilities, put out a white paper last week. Representative Kathy McMorris Rogers from the state of Washington. She has a child with Down syndrome, and she cares a lot about these issues. And her white paper, she's soliciting comments. I'm going to send it around to the state execs once we have a template comment. But she is asking about things like SSI asset limits, about things like waiting lists and portability, and how do we fix these problems, and what are the best ways that we can be doing this. And the fact that she is asking these questions even before she takes over as committee chair, I think is a really good sign. It shows that that's going to be a priority of hers going into next year. And so we're really excited about that.
So that would be the Commerce Committee overall, or the subcommittee? Commerce Committee overall?
The whole Energy and Commerce
Wow.
Committee.
Wow.
Yeah. She used to be in senior Republican Party leadership in the House, but has recently really focused a lot more on policy and wants to do more things to fix policy. And so I think that makes a lot of sense. She's from a more moderate district in Washington, so I think this is helpful for us.
Wow.
But yeah, we're really excited about that. We're also looking, kind of across things at other things that we could be working on. We know that marriage penalties are something that many, many people with disabilities have top of their list because they would like to get married. And so we are trying to figure out a way to get some type of legislation working there. Many thanks to your Senator Warren for having it in her presidential platform. We think that's a really good step in the right direction. And so we're trying to figure out how we could bills that we could get introduced and how we can work on that. My new colleague, David, who just joined our team, has been really taking the lead on that. And I'm excited to see what comes out of that. So I would love to stop for questions if y'all have any. I'm guessing you probably do about kind of what's going on at the federal level. So
I think I want to ask you first, though, is this combination of the spousal stuff and the asset limit are interesting, right? Having the Medicaid and the SSI thing in play. Do you think does that reflect coherent thinking around policy, or just coincidence?
Unfortunately, it's just a coincidence. But to your point, it would be really helpful for everybody.
Right.
And I think one thing that we should be paying attention to, or at least I am, is California just this last legislative session increased the Medicaid asset limits to $100,000.
Wow.
That's effectively eliminating, I mean, not totally, but it dramatically increases who can stay on Medicaid. And for me, that is a really good step in the right direction. And so I think we're likely to see some more movement in that way to kind of make Medicaid a more accessible program for people who need long-term services and supports for. Okay. I thought I turned off my notifications to my phone, but apparently I didn't. I'm so sorry.
You have a few more minutes?
Yeah, I do. Please go ahead.
Okay, anybody else want to jump in before, because I want to give folks on the call a chance. I know we have been talking about this for a while, so I know the muscles might have to retabulate, but if anybody wants to ask a question, you can even ask her a trick question. It's okay. All right. Wow. Okay.
I will say, if you're getting health insurance through the Affordable Care Act, the big deal that Manchin and Schumer announced is going to be real good for you because they're fixing the premium structure again for longer. So very excited about that. That'll be helpful. But
yeah, and then there's like what, 64 billion to extend the Affordable Care Act. I mean, there seems to be, one thing I'd love for you to finish on is the whole Manchin thing at HCBS, because at one point it seemed like he was invested in that, that we had heard, right?
I think he is invested. I think the problem is that the inflation rates in the country just got so high, he got really concerned about deficit reduction. That's always been something he's been very concerned about. But right now, with inflation being 8%, I think he just felt like he couldn't justify spending more money. In the past month and a half, we've been trying to do really economic themed messaging with him, where we've been having folks reach out to his office about, look, I am having to cut back my hours at my job because there aren't enough direct support professionals. I'm having to support my sibling or my child, and this just isn't working. Like, we're going to take an economic hit if this doesn't work. Even that kind of messaging was not helping as much as we were really hoping it would. And I think, it just came down to what he could get comfortable with. And it unfortunately wasn't our priorities.
Gotcha.
It's funny because he's actually the governor who ended the waiting lists in West Virginia. You would think that this would be something he would understand and want to support. So I see a question in the chat. If you have any family members in North Carolina, please ask them to call Senator Burr. You can give them talking points. We have an action alert on our website. Feel free to reach out. You're also welcome to reach out to your own senators. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. But yeah, we need constituents in North Carolina to reach out and talk to him. And so we have paid social media ads going all across North Carolina right now from the national office. And we're hoping, I will say, John at the Arc of North Carolina has reached out directly to Burr's office and been like, this is a priority, you need to do this. And I know a lot of family members have as well. So we're hoping that'll make a difference. But yeah, he is really frustrating right now.
And I won't say anything more. I know he got 300 billion on deficit reduction. We'll leave it at that. But yeah, the shock issue, I'm glad Rick brought that back into the conversation. I'll try to put in the chat the link for the alert.
I can actually.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Let me just pull it up.
Okay. Because I went into the statements on the website, of course, and but I didn't hit the action center. It looks like take action. Here it is.
All right. Well, any other questions?
Yeah, actually, just going back to what you were saying about Manchin and trying to make an economic argument with him is one thing that always strikes me about Manchin is he's always very concerned about the price tag or the apparent price tag. But as far as I know, he's not himself an economist. So I'm wondering, are there people who are economists who maybe can give him an indication of what the real economic impact of some of these things are that perhaps don't necessarily match the talking points that tend to be sort of regurgitated in the media.
So we tried that with some of our allies. We got Moody, the big analytics economic forecasting firm, to do some work around home and community-based services, and they put out a report and we sent it along to Manchin. But that's a really good idea. The ones that he seems to listen to the most are the Penn Wharton folks. And so we've been trying to figure out if we can cultivate anyone there. I'm very curious to see. So I mentioned that, polling suggests that the Democrats are likely to lose the House. If they manage to squeak it out, if they manage to keep, a 1-seat majority, depending on how the Senate goes, which is very up in the air right now, we could end up in exactly this situation for the next 2 years, where we are waiting on Senator Manchin to get any of our priorities passed. So he is going to remain a top target in terms of trying to make sure that he's coming along with us and thinking about our issues in the right way. So we're trying to develop some work around the Penn Wharton scholars. And if anyone has any connections there and would want to, happy to chat with people there about kind of some of the the projections that we're looking at, and kind of it's a broader kind of, we've also got the paid leave groups interested in this and the childcare groups interested in this, because the childcare workers are going through the same problems that the direct support professionals are going through right now. They don't have access to childcare despite being childcare workers. They're not getting paid enough. And they're disproportionately getting kind of excluded from a lot of the benefits that happen, other work benefits. And so, there's a lot of overlap in those kind of workers and how we can invest in them right now. Unfortunately, that does not seem to be a problem that Senator Manchin is registering. So, although we'll see, we might see bipartisan work on any of this, and then we'll just have to make sure that it's actually helpful bipartisan work.
Great. Well, not great, but we'll hang in there. There's some good
Thank
stuff. So really appreciate Bethany joining us. Thank you. Look forward to having you join us again down the road as well.
Always happy to join you. Thank you, Leo, for everything. And thank you all, the rest of you, for everything. We'll get through this. We'll get it eventually. That's what I keep telling myself. Someone who has been doing this for 5 years longer, no, 10 years longer than I have, told me yesterday that he is still shocked that we got as far as we did with home and community-based services this time around, given how new an issue it is for Congress to be dealing with. So I'll take that as a win.
Right. No, that's great. All right. Thanks a lot. Have a great day and week. Take care. Yeah, she's wonderful. And we got a great team in DC, and really appreciate it. So let me go back to the PowerPoint. I want to walk through a state update and have some time for communication, because you might have questions about what's going on there. So let me go to the one I was using. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So I just was adding something on another one about the alert. So we had our federal piece. There's some pictures, fresh pictures off this session. So what's happened? What's left of this session? The 192nd. Let me go quickly. I think we've done the budget before. I want to get into the policy stuff and what could happen or not happen. I'm sorry for there's something wrong with my camera or something. I feel like I see a reflection, but I apologize. In fact, anyway, let me just focus on this. As you can see, we're basically looking at con-free, the highest numbers we could get. So in transportation and community day work, just to be clear about that, that's projecting at 85% of the governor's number before COVID hit of what would have been reality. Okay, so that's a huge variance. So if things got back to anywhere close as normal, or if, as we hope, there'll be money going to families and individuals who can't get back to the day programs, then we would be going back for supplemental money for another 15 to 20% of the dollars. The residential was already increased in the governor's budget. The respite and family support was increased in the governor's budget from the previous year. Technology was increased by the House and agreed to by the Senate with an additional 1.2, basically it was at $500,000 and now it's at $1,750,000. Autism waiver kids got a big boost because over 4 million, over 5 million, because of what kids had gotten through in schools. So that was the big focus on that. Autism Omnibus got a $6 million boost, almost nearly 6 million. And turning 22 was already higher in the governor's budget. We stayed flat on DESE, and just so you know, last year we spent under 8 million in DESE, or right around 8 million. So that's probably why we couldn't get an additional appropriation for that line item. And everything else, you know, except for, let's see, state schools stayed flat. State operated homes stayed pretty much the governor's projection, a little higher. Same with administration, actually went a little higher. So you get a sense of where the wins were. And this, in terms of the disability line in Mass Health, remember it's an entitlement. So whatever happens, it does go up through a supplemental budget. So, you know, they work hard to deny people hours. Is how they try to keep their budget in shape, right? So that's the budget piece. I don't know if anyone has any budget questions before we go to the policy piece. Okay. And Carrie, if you see chats, let me know. So let's go. This line item, obviously, we had in play, right? Chapter 257, there was an economic development package, both in the House and Senate. The House had put $100 million out there, but it wasn't necessarily a rate increase. The Senate had put 100 million plus 150 million in a rate increase. So that was really big. But as you know, the governor caught Beacon Hill off guard. I don't know if it was Thursday or Friday, with days to go in the session, about the 1986 law that mass taxpayers got passed that could trigger $3 billion in tax relief. What's really sad about this is obviously a different situation. So we're going to give people back some money, and there was projections that if you earn $75,000, you're getting a few $100s back, when we still have people not able to go to day programs and families at home struggling with a range of issues, let alone other people with disabilities not being able to recruit staff into their homes or apartments. So that's unfortunate. That's a big deal. And it would have added, as I said, to the 230 million, 150 million. So, and we would have gotten closer maybe to $18 and change in terms of salary. I've explained before how Chapter 257 works, and if people think it'd be great to walk through it again, because there are other groups that, you know, primarily like SEIU, that claims providers just aren't giving the raises, and that's just not true. And I'm sure there's some good some bad providers out there, but that's got nothing to do with how Chapter 257 works. And the fact that people, you know, we've done a couple of educational pieces on this, on how the state benchmarks the salaries. And if salaries are 70 to 75% salaries and benefits of your budget, you can't add money to it from your bottom line, because it's got to be sustainable every year. So here it is, the policy stuff. Everything really that has happened so far, except for the Mental Health Barriers Act, was part of the conference committee budget. And and that Macy's one of them. And I know, you know, we're very supportive in that bill, and Maura Sullivan especially played a big role. And then we included letters to leadership during the conference process, and as well as touched conferees, you know, through the phone, and just to support this and the history bill and the ABA pilot, and just to make sure they stay, because the Senate had put them into the bill. It's very unusual, by the way, for the House to go along with something like that. So it's really exciting. It allows special education teams to consider higher education as an option. It brings DDS into it, Mass Rehab Commission, the high school, obviously. So that's one, but also students who pass and don't pass MCAS can take non-matriculating courses as well at the college. So it's pretty exciting, and it took away the barriers on what colleges could and couldn't do. So it's been probably like 10 years that this has been in play, maybe a little longer. And then the history bill, a commission on state institutions, which had a broad coalition. That really was something. By the way, on Macy, you know, kudos to Senator Lovely And on the House sides, Rep. Garbely and Rep. Haddad, and I know there's another rep that helped lead the fight, and so I just want to mention them because get it into the Senate bill and then, to have that play out on the history bill. Senator Michael Barrett did a great job, working with coalition, but also other senators to get it into the Senate budget. And then again, Sean Garbely and others worked on, getting the bill. And I feel like Dave Rogers was involved either with Macy or the history bill. So Representative Rogers, thank you to you as well. And by the way, Representative Garbely will be with us next week as we do the 2 promises and unkept promises sessions. And we've invited another legislature for the week after on the 15th. But basically the history bill, that's commission, it's in play. It was obviously the governor signed it. And then finally an ABA pilot for adults, mass health. We've been having trouble. Just the goal would be to get whatever's done for kids for adults, applied behavioral analysis, and there's been a real barrier on that. So that's something that we agreed to put some of our sweat equity into it, but we already had reached out to 3. Most of the funding for that will go to the 3 programs that are already serving adults, and we would document to the legislature the results of that, as well as to mass health. And then the Mental Health Barriers Act. That's something that passed. We're hoping we'll have more on that soon. There's clearly going to be some positive things for our community from that bill. And as you know, both the ARC and Advocates for Autism in Massachusetts and other groups, they've been working to try to get more results from Department of Mental Health and Mass Health around the dual diagnoses that exist for people with autism, developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities. It's been for people with disabilities, it's been like history, 70 years, 80 years of having difficulty getting the right kinds of treatment when it comes to emotional or psychiatric or behavioral conditions. Now, what's a snapshot of what might be? So you look at, when you're trying to sort of bet on these things, you look at who are the internal champions, what's possible. We still think the economic development, there's a lot of legislators that had investments in that bill. So we do think something will happen there. We're just not sure what, and it's clearly this tax return thing, really, the 1986 law is really an issue that, for those of you that weren't around, it was a fiery thing. Taxachusetts, we're not Taxachusetts, far from it anymore. Supported decision making has gotten a lot of positive. It's big collaboration, and congratulations to the hard work MDDC has done in leading that collaboration. And it just, we do think it has legs, and we do think that's a great example. If there's not controversy, it could pass in an informal session. We had heard architectural access bill was in a bill, was in another bill that it was going to move. I have got to call Senator Moore's staff to remind me where we're supposed to move. Was it in economic development? Was it in the infrastructure bill, transportation, that's going to get signed hopefully soon? And if it is, that's great, because it would make sense to be in the infrastructure bill. So that's something, again, it's been more than a decade. And that basically gets workplaces and homes, housing that was pre a certain year, also subject to renovation requirements around disability access. So obviously a smart thing to do. We felt Operation House Call had legs. And again, these are bills that, by the way, either they have a champion and they're in Ways and Means, or a key, basically a key committee. So Operation House Call and expanding registry to rehabilitation. As you know, many, agencies that already provide DDS services also provide rehabilitation. Very few do not. I mean, the few that provide rehabilitation and don't provide other DDS or DDS services are a handful of that. So that would be a minor change for the registry. And then Mass Health ABA Adults Bill, Sarah Keenan was pushing hard on that. And then Tommy's Law, which I think has Representative Rogers and Senator Pat O'Connor. Yeah, he's been pushing hard on that. So that's sort of what's pending. I know people are wondering, what the heck is the session, all right? And so here's the reality. The 192nd session, that's what we're in. This, for those of you that want to know, like, what the story is on that. Technically, the formal session ended yesterday, right? 7 a.m, to be honest with you, today. And within a session, there's 2 sessions. There's the first annual session and the second annual session. Don't ask me why they call it the same name. In an odd year, like last year, 2021, it ended in November because there's no election, right? The formal sessions. And I should have said formal session. I'll edit that before you guys get the copy. The informal sessions then kick in after the 3rd week of November. But this year, when it's an even year and people are running for office, okay, the final session was yesterday for formal sessions. That means a roll call is taken. But in informal sessions, they're the rule now, starting today and through January 3rd, 2023. And all state legislators, like I said, are subject to the upcoming election. During an informal session, no roll call votes are taken. That's why any legislator who objects can stop its movement or advance, okay? So if you have a non-controversial issue, like SDM appears to be, or Operation House Gold, I don't know which. I would think the registry wouldn't be controversial, but who knows? Those issues are then considered and approved by a voice vote. They're not going to try to take something that they know someone's going to object to and try to pass it during an informal session. Could they call a formal session for a day here, a day there? Yeah, they could if the Senate and House agrees. I don't know if that's going to happen. Maybe it'll happen for the economic development bill. Maybe it'll happen to override vetoes. And there are informal sessions planned, oddly enough, on the Senate. It doesn't call itself an informal session. It has one on August 4th, and the House has an informal session on August 4th. That's already planned. And a joint session in the House chamber, probably to wrap up the year, is scheduled for November 21st. That means the House and Senate will be together, for that session. Before I do this, let me stop the share for a second and go back to you guys. Any questions that anybody has, either on the policy items and or the calendar, that you want to ask while we have a second before I talk about the forums that are coming up for Attorney General and Governor?
I just want to understand how the informal session works. So does that mean the dates you mentioned are the only time that there'll be informal
No,
sessions, or?
No, so they had done that in advance, Giassi, for some reason. They had set those dates, right? But they could have an informal session. I doubt it today because people will be tired, but they could have one next week. They could have 2 next week. And they're often, you'll hear, oh, they're in informal session this week on Tuesday and Thursday. So you'll get the, and you can look in the calendar that shows us. Let me see if I have that up right now and I could show you guys. Calendar, session scramble. No, that's the State House News. Yeah, I don't have it up right now. I wish I did. But you'd see like this calendar, and you can always like Google House, legislative calendar, Massachusetts, and you'll go to that page. So that's how that works. Well, let me put a plug in for the forums. We're really hoping people will turn out for the forums. Collaboration is working on. You can see a picture in a minute, but August 11th, there'll be the Attorney General's Forum. So that's only 2 weeks from now, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. You can register. It's posted on our site. I'm sure it's posted on MDDC, DLC, Disability Law Center, AFAM, other sites that are working with us. And I think, groups like Mass Down Syndrome Congress and other groups are all part of it. Excuse me for not mentioning you. If someone wants to mention themselves, feel free. September 8th is the Governor's Forum, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And we also have a site, which tell me if you can see it when I do this. The voting site, do you see it or is it still on the PowerPoint?
Still on PowerPoint.
Still on it? Okay, let me just move off and show you. Not interesting. Oh, stop share. Let me reshare and just take you to that page, the ARC votes, and there's, all kinds of, like at the very bottom, actually here, there's all the different things you can see about the cycle. Are you registered to vote? So on and so forth, okay, that we've updated. And then we have the detail you can view for the virtual forums that are going to take place. And then there's a national center, and then there's some voting rights persons on the guardianship. Voting makes a difference from Henry Malloran. So Fred Mislow and Henry Malloran have some good stuff there you can look at that we've reposted, that's actually there year round. So let me stop that share for a second, but we're pretty excited about it. We're still hustling on it. It's sort of, thank you, Kathleen Amaral on, who's been working on it too. And I do want to show, there's one more thing I want to show you guys, that this is really a collaboration and how important the collaboration is. Here's the cloud there. Do you see it? The organizations that are co-sponsoring it. And so Mass Advocates Standing Strong, NBDC, Boston Center for Independent Living, DLC, and AFAM are all part of the planning groups. And then we've had a bunch of organizations we've been trying to recruit as we went along. So very happy that they're on board. And feel like we're missing a couple of logos.
How did this happen? Did they reach out to us or did we reach out to them?
Oh, we're reaching out to them. Yeah.
And why do we pick the Attorney General race and not the other?
I wasn't at that meeting, so you'd have to ask other people from my office, but I think people felt that. I think we're going to invite lieutenant governors to give us a minute or two, a couple of minutes on disability issues. I'm going to post that on YouTube and try to do that low manpower wise. But we were going to only do governor, initially. So, but decided to go in that direction.
But why not auditor, for instance, or even
Well, first place, all of it takes a lot of time.
Okay.
I can't tell you how many times you have to outreach to somebody, and that's been a factor, So it's, and I don't think right now, as of this date, the Attorney General Republican candidate hasn't even responded, so I'm not sure he'll be there. And that's life, he misses an opportunity, and hopefully someone's reached out to him. So the alert, I'm going to add this alert to the PowerPoint. I just added it. And, just want to also thank everybody participating, and just how we do this is through donations and support. So really appreciate all the support, both, your volunteer activity and financial, and hopefully you'll let us know if there's things we need to do that are more responsive as well. So everybody have a great, we went through it. We went almost right to the second. And if there's no more questions, we'll wish you well for the week, and we'll be back to talk about the family stories and individual stories struggling to get services over the next 2 weeks. And then we're going to take a break from that August 15th after that session until September, I think it's 10th or 12th, the week after Labor Day. So we'll have a long 3 Mondays that we won't be here. So, and some of that time I'll be on vacation. Some of that time I just was thinking it'll be hard to get people to come. So in the summer's been quieter than the regular year in terms of numbers as well. But thank you for coming, and look forward to seeing you next week for those of you that are able to come.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Take care.